Hey, welcome to a drive-by review of the EF-M 32mm f1.4 STM lens, a lens that's been making a lot of waves since its release late 2018. Now there's no doubt in my mind that this is a quality piece of glass, but it better be as it costs near $500 to buy it. So, you don't want to be wasting money. But there's a couple questions I have on its specific function. For example, I want to know how well it works with capturing fast-moving subjects, especially at those faster aperture settings. I know it's going to have big bokeh, big creamy backgrounds, but it's going to look good to the eye. It's going to be beautiful as well as big. And of course, I want to know how well does it function in low light with the autofocusing, and of course its ability to still capture beautiful colors and contrast in photos and video. Well, we're going to answer all those questions and more today in today's review. So let's unbox this puppy. Let's unbox this puppy and slap it on the M50 and see how it performs. Here we go. Now, one thing that's been truly impressive with the EF-M series of lenses is how compact Canon's been able to keep the entire line. And just for comparison's sake, you can see this next to the 22mm I reviewed earlier, the smallest lens they make, and of course next to the kit lens, which is a 15 to 45mm. And considering that this is a 32mm prime lens, a fast prime lens, a 1.4, it's just impressive to see it in this size. And we've got that nice build quality that's similar to the 22mm with the metal mount to the lens side. And of course, they come with the nice covers from Canon. Now there is an interesting button option here. It's a focus limiter. So the minimum focus range is 0.23 meters. However, you can limit that with a switch to 0.5 meters to infinity instead. Beyond that, we also have the nice smooth focus ring we've come to appreciate out of the EF-M line of lenses. And just to make note, it is a 43mm diameter for filters on this lens. All right, guys, let's slap this on the M50 and see how it performs. As expected, the 32mm performed extremely well capturing sharp images with good color depth and dynamic range. I found the bokeh to be big and beautiful, able to easily separate a subject from the background with an eye-pleasing, creamy composition. When it came to using that fast aperture with quick-moving subjects, I found the focus limiter switch to come in quite handy with improving the autofocus speed and accuracy, most noticeable when shooting in low light and indoor settings with the faster movements from your subjects. Without image stability in this lens, it was a bit more challenging when it came to shooting video. However, I found the digital image stabilization from the M50 body was invaluable at filling in this void. After all, any shakes are quite noticeable at this particular focal length. And if you plan on utilizing this particular lens for a lot of video uses, you may consider investing into something that will give you really smooth image stability like a gimbal. Now, when it came down to shooting video in low light situations, I found that focus limiter switch again came in quite handy at just bumping up the autofocus speed and accuracy a little bit. And to demonstrate that, beyond just the examples I'm showing you here, I'm going to go ahead and show you with specific settings and lighting how that actually makes a difference. And you can kind of judge for yourself how much of a difference the focus limiter switch actually makes this lens perform, along with the autofocusing system in the M50 body. And also, at the same time, it'll give you an example of how this lens looks in different lighting situations, both low light indoor and outdoor. So check this out. Boom, here we go. We've got the 32mm on the M50 body, and right now we're shooting at night indoors, except with ample lighting from 100 watt 5000 Kelvin lights. And we're shooting at f1.4 100 ISO. And we're going to try this with the focus limiter switch currently at full. So you got the full range. And what you're going to see here is if I take something and I throw it way close to the minimum focus range of this lens, it's going to go through its full range of focus. It's going to find it. But when it comes back, this is area autofocus, right in the middle here. It's going to go through its entire range of focus onto me. And you see how slow that is, right? And that's what I was talking about, the speed and accuracy. Now it's being pretty accurate. It should be here. We might see if that changes when I take away some of this lighting. But watch this. I'm going to flick on that switch for the focus limiter to 0.5 meters. Okay, switch is on. So watch this. I'm going to go to that same kind of close position, and you're going to see that it does not focus, right? Because we're beyond its focus range now. on purpose. But watch this. I mean, it was attempting to, but watch this. We go to its minimum focus range now at 0.5 meter, boom, and then back to area autofocus, boom. And you see the speed pick up, right? It just doesn't have to go through that full range. And it's very effective when you're taking photos, especially with fast-moving targets. That's what I found, especially if you're going to shoot at f1.4. Now let's start going into low light territory. Okay, 60 watt overhead source of light, typical indoor room lighting. And we're going to have to bump up the ISO. So here we go. We're going to come up to, yeah, that's pretty good. 500 ISO, 400, we could even do 400. 500 was crisp, right? Let's go to let's go to 500. Okay, so here we go. 500 ISO now with a little bit more lower light. Still f1.4 with that thin depth of field. And here we go. We're going to go all the way in to that close focus. And I expect to see about the same speed. That's what I was experiencing when I was out there in the field photographing and videoing. About the same speed. And there it is. Okay, and we're going to flick that switch on the focus limiter. Okay, focus is now limited, so here is the 0.5 meter. Boom, back onto me. Actually seems to be working even better, right? Not bad. Okay, let's jump all the way to true low light. That seemed about the same to me as that bright setting. Whew, here we go. So this is 60 watt indirect light source bouncing off the wall around the corner at my 3 o'clock. And we're going to have to bump that up quite a bit. So let's go 1600 ISO, 3200 ISO, 6400 ISO, 6400, 3200. Yeah, 6400. Surprising. Surprising. Got the focus limiter back on full. Okay, so here we go. 6400 ISO. It's going to be a bit grainy in the shot. And here we go. We're going to go really, really close. I'm going to give it that white. Interesting. Back to me. Same speed. I've always been impressed with the consistency of the M50. It just tends to be. Is that lighting from my computer? I think that light you see on the pillow is being picked up from my computer internal light, which is just a dim little LED in the back of the computer box. Can't see it on my eye. Okay, focus limiter is on. Here we go. Okay, and here we go back to my face. Okay, now I'm going to change this face tracking autofocus so it's going to stay on me, and it's also going to show if the camera can pick up my face in these different low light settings, which it should be able to, especially considering this is faster than the 22mm f2 lens that did just fine in low light. Now keep in mind, I do understand there's going to be some comments about, of course it's going to be faster on the autofocus because making the minimum focus range larger is going to make the lens not have to go in and out as far, and that's the whole point. I mean, it doesn't allow it to, and so it is faster, even if it's trying to find the focus, right? It's gonna bring it all the way out the minimum focus range because I'm so close. Now that's interesting. I'm closer than 0.5 meters. Are you gonna focus still? Oh, it's focused on my ear. But that's the whole point. It does really help, and you'll notice the difference, especially when you're dealing with faster moving subjects at night and you're really trying to shoot at this f1.4. All right, let's jump out to outdoor low light lighting and see how it performs out there. Okay, here we are out in the sidewalk area where there's really no direct light source anywhere near me. In fact, once a car goes by, there's not a direct light source within a couple hundred feet. And they're all dim. They're all these little teeny porch lights. But watch this. Here goes the background. And here goes me. Now this is with the focus limiter switch currently on, right? So it's limited to this close. And there's a speed at a very thin 1.4 aperture depth of field. Let's see if the accuracy changes when I put that back to full. Now I don't know why you'd ever be this close to the camera, or need to be, but it may happen at low light when you're filming some sort of subject this close. But here we go, we got full range. I'm gonna get really close. You're gonna see my eye. Oh, there it is. And back out. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's actually not bad. Doesn't seem to be that much different. If I go back to that 0.5 meters. Now this whole time I'm just shooting at 6400 ISO still, and as you can see, this is a usable image. You might want to bump that up to like 8000. If you go up to 10,000 and 12,800, it's going to keep getting this nice brightness to it that's beyond what the human eye perceives at this time of night. But it's really kind of up to you where you want to bounce that. The autofocusing is functioning quite well at 6400 ISO. Oh, chilly wind. But it really comes down to what do you want to see out of your video you're capturing, and of course the autofocus has to function well, and will do so in either case. Now I will mention that autofocus tracking works better with single point and area autofocus as opposed to face tracking. So watch this, I'm going to leave it at 6400 ISO and switch to face tracking autofocus. Just to demonstrate what's going on as far as the difference here. So let's get me in focus first, and if I'm right about here, standing about 2 meters away from the camera, there's no problem. But once you really play with this minimum focus range, watch this. Background, I jump back in. It's got my face on the tracking. It's got my face. It knows it's a face. But you're gonna see it's just hanging out. And this is only with the face tracking autofocus. Not entirely sure why that has such a hard time. If I bring myself again back here, it's gonna find me. And then once it finds me, it can keep me with its normal speed. But if you're jumping in and out of the frame, it's just going to struggle consistently. And this doesn't matter on the focus limiter switch in this particular scenario. Now, if I bump up the ISO, I'm going to go max on this. I'm going to go up to 12,800. I do tend to notice, I think, a slight improvement, but I think I can still pretty much conquer it. Now, same issue. ISO up or ISO down doesn't make a difference, does it? Well, there you go. And I continue to recommend, if you're shooting in low light, to utilize the single point or area autofocus as opposed to face tracking. All right, guys, let's jump back indoors because it is cold out here. Ha! Well, there you guys go. Some autofocus testing in the great low light outdoors. And I can't feel my toes and fingers, but it's totally worth it because I did it for the vine, right? Now for my thoughts on the 32mm lens, I see it as possibly the best native lens option for all-around walk-around photography. Really did phenomenally well in all sorts of situations with all sorts of subjects, able to take amazingly crisp, clear, quality shots with minimal effort from the photographer. You know, for beginners, it's going to be an exceptional lens to utilize. Now you're going to have to work at the composition because it doesn't zoom. You got to get exactly where you want to be. But that's the beauty of the prime lens. It makes you really think and work, but at the same time, it produces those quality shots because it is a prime lens. When it comes to video, not even thinking about how it struggled with the face tracking autofocus, because I don't really mind switching to aerial autofocus and point autofocus. That's not a big deal to me. But being limited on this particular field of view is just not something I utilize a lot of the time. And also, even with that focus limiter switch assisting in the speed, it just, with how thin that depth of field is, combined with this field of view, it just made it a bit difficult to really compose exactly what I want when I see something with my eye and I want to create a video with that and really change and play around with the depth of field and subject isolation and all of that. This is just not really the best lens option in my mind, especially when it comes down to bang for your buck, right? There's some awesome options like the 22mm f2 and of course the wide angle 11 to 22mm, which is phenomenal if you have enough light to shoot with that lens. But that being the case, this particular lens is going to beat the 22mm when it comes to photos. It's going to beat the wide angle lens when it comes to photos, unless you want that distortion. And all that really to say that yes, this lens is everything they promise it is on their spec sheet. And as you can see for yourself, it definitely does what they promise. Now, as always, I'm curious to hear what you have to say. Let me know what you thought of the photos and videos and the autofocusing as well in the low light situations. Leave your comments down below and I'll check them out. If you want to check out this lens for yourself, I'll post some links down in the description below and the comments. But beyond that, thanks for tuning in, guys, to Drive By Reviews, and I'll see you next time on the next